I'll just give that a moment to load. And then we can have a look at our aims for the session. Right, so what we'll be doing this afternoon, we'll obviously have a look at work from the first photo shoot. And I have to say there were some absolutely excellent images from that photo shoot. We were all expecting a bit of a washout, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get great photos. But given the conditions, I think everybody did incredibly well. And of course, what you've got to remember in this particular group, everybody is at a different level. So we don't have like 16 people at advanced level, we don't have 16 people at intermediate or 16 beginners. We've got quite a mix of different abilities in this group, so that's something that you have to bear in mind. So we're going to jump in shortly and do a critique from that first photo shoot. So personally, I was very impressed with some of the work. At the end of this, we'll consider locations for the second photo shoot. So we'll go into breakout rooms and do that. In our practical part of the session, we're going to be looking at how we can capture silhouettes in our photography. Just often adding people gives a sense of scale and adds a sense of interest to our photos. And then, of course, with silhouettes, we're not worrying too much about the model release because it's not applicable. So we'll be having a look at how you capture silhouettes and how they can enhance your photography in practical. In image editing, we have projects divided up according to abilities. So the first project mentioned is the small planet, and you'll see an example of that. So there will be a handout and a file on that. That can be quite interesting in terms of a quirky way to look at, say, somewhere familiar. So it could be that you're interested in creating one of the quayside, that would work well. I did one of Gateshead Millennium Bridge, which was just a bit of fun, but quite quirky. So that's something that, as I say, was requested and you may care to take a look at. Another nice way of presenting images in a slightly different light, the Monday Advanced have already taken a look at this technique, and that's using coloured infrared. And so that type of technique is not too difficult. There is a video on how to do it. I recorded a video. So basically it's turning very green foliage and a really unusual and attractive shade of pink, and skies, lovely blue skies with fluffy clouds, turn a really nice shade of duck egg blue. So that's something maybe not for the purists, but it can look really effective, and that type of image actually does sell well. The other editing project will be looking at warping and transforming in editing. So how we can adjust parts of an image using warp and transform tools. So quite a lot to be looking at this afternoon. So we'll get going without further ado, unless anybody's got any comments. No, I am recording this session. I hope that is all right. If anybody does have an objection, then please let me know. It's just we have got a few people absent this afternoon through either work commitments or various other reasons, and so this really helps them if they can see a recording of the session. Right, so we had a number of tasks to look at last week when we were out on location, and the first up is the frame within a frame. So you remember that using this technique we are either using natural framing, or it could be wherever a framing opportunity presents itself, in order to draw attention to the main subject and also create a sense of depth. So instead of an image looking particularly flat and quite often quite boring, if you introduce framing in some respect to your photography, it can really add a huge difference or make a difference. Right, so first up we have Ali's image. I'll ask Gordon, would you like to say something about this image, Gordon? So you're just commenting on how effective you think the framing is, or if you have any suggestions for improvement, perhaps.
Okay, this is the Chinese gate at Stowell Street with the buildings through the. It's nice. It's a nice coloured frame. So the frame itself is, I think, as interesting as the subject through it, which is the new buildings, and it's a nice contrast as well in the old Chinese style and the new sort of tower blocks. I like the colour. I like the blue in the middle and the red around the edge. And although you can see in the background, it's quite a grey day. It was, but I think yes, I think that's an effective picture for me. Yes.
Any thoughts on improving it at all, Gordon?
Not really. I'm not. I wouldn't like to say. I wouldn't like to say.
Okay, no problem. Anything to say about this one, Ali?
Yeah, I think Gordon's spot on there. It's basically about the old and the new, and the contrast in the colours. It's not perfect. The buildings on it, I'm sure there's a lot of things we can do to improve it, but I just like the colours more than else.
It's well seen. One option, I mean, I haven't done anything, I've just literally cropped in on the image just to reduce what was underneath. So it could be a one that you want to either retake because it is really interesting. It's very well seen at the taking stage, Ali. It just really needs a little bit of tidying up, perhaps exploring different angles. So you've still got the framing, but maybe not quite so much of what else is going on. If you wanted to showcase that, just get the verticals straightened up a bit. Okay. But very well seen, Ali. I love that frame. It's great. Next up we have Heather, so I'm making notes because Heather's not here. So again, frame within a frame, just a few words on this, Vince, please.
Sorry, who did you ask, Jane?
Vince, please. Can you hear Vince?
Jane, Vince had problems with his audio before.
Okay. Vince, don't worry about it until you get your audio sorted. Can you hear me okay, Vince? Yeah. Vince, I'm sending you a message. So I hope you've seen that, Vince, just sometimes going out, coming back in again, or like before, if you just check which microphone has been allocated to you, that will make a big difference. Right, okay, so I'll just ask Peter, would you just say a few words on Heather's image for feedback?
I do like that. It's framed really well. I think the kind of the footpath line kind of takes your eye straight to the like rotunda at the back, and I think that's really good. I think also the people bring some interest to that, don't they? Walking down the road and the shadows again going through the theatre oil columns also brings some interest to it as well. Yeah, I do like that.
Thank you. Any thoughts on improving at all or not?
You would, because being an engineer and basically like symmetry, I don't know if it's possible to kind of get the evenness in the rotunda as such to get both sides, but that might not be possible because of that light there.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know, you could edit that light out, presumably. if you wanted, well, I don't know if you could or not really, but other than that, no, I wouldn't say anything else.
Okay. Do you think it would work as a black and white?
I think it would, yes.
Okay. Right, thank you for that. I'll send that through to Heather. Next up we have Phil. Phil sadly is at the dentist. So Ashley, could you just critique this one for us? Just a few words, you don't have to say much.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, obviously nice framed through the foliage of the tree at Eldon Square. Interesting foreground with the pigeons. I would have loved to have got the shot where the little lad ran through them, but didn't get it. Yeah, I mean the George and the Dragon monument statue there, just left of centre is good. Just takes us, takes a simmer out of it, which I think is a good thing. Some nice colours. Yeah, nice shot.
Thank
And
you.
the gentleman in red as well always pops.
Yeah, that really does draw your eye in, doesn't it? Especially where we can see him in full stride, because that makes a difference where you have movement of people. When they're in full stride, it always looks better. So yeah, and obviously a location to potentially go back to, because children can't resist running through pigeons, so that's something that you could perhaps get again. So thank you for that, Ashley.
Thank you.
Next up we have Vince's image. Ali, would you like to say a couple of words about this, please?
Yeah, it's well seen. It's sort of like reflections on what's going on inside the cafeteria. There's quite a lot of people in there, and it's the way it's sort of convex with the mirror and sort of things. Very interesting. But you're not quite sure where to look, on the right hand side or the left hand side.
Yes.
Yeah, I
You spend longer looking at it. And I'll not ask you, Vince, if there's anything you want to say about the image. You might want to just put it in the chat, and then we can see what you've had to say.
Am I working again?
Oh, you are. You're great now. Perfect. Yes.
Graham and one or two others may recognise that I got quite interested in a particular photographer a few years back, who really came from a very much of an art background, and so he's got a big thing about taking three-dimensional photos and really making it sort of flat and making it two-dimensional. And the other thing is that the idea is really that it is more of an impression. And as with Impressionist art, your eye is not necessarily drawn to a specific area. It encourages you to look around the frame. And I was looking for something similar in putting this image together. The only thing I was unsure about was whether to use one frame or two frames. So I've got a couple of photographs which have just got one of those frames rather than the two images. But for today, I left the two frame image in.
Okay, so yeah, it was Sal Leiter, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, really interesting techniques going on here, and works really well for a class image. Now, when it comes to presentation work where we're showcasing the city, this type of image is going to be tricky, because obviously people are going to be able to recognise themselves if they're inside a cafe, and you can't go into a cafe asking permission to take somebody's photo. So it's going to be a little bit tricky. Plus, if a photo needs explanation, it's not going to be doing so well in an exhibition. It's got to be much more clear cut. I mean, something like this could always be staged with a few class members sitting in the cafe, and you could concentrate on the single frame, because it is very creative and looks really good. It's just for the type of exhibitions that we're going to be involved with, I think we've got to be quite careful what we use. But very well seen, Vince, and like to see the other ones that you've taken of the single frame especially. Next up we have Gordon. Could I ask Jim to critique, please?
Yes, I like that one, but I think the thing with wet paint puts it off, and you can see his reflection in the glass there of the photographer of Gordon.
Mm.
But it's a nice little image to show a busker in town.
Okay, so in terms of taking it again, would you recommend, say, taking this at an angle so the photographer
On the
isn't?
side,
Yeah.
So the person taking the photograph is not in the picture.
Okay.
But I like the reflection as well, and if we take it from the side, we might get more of the reflection.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Jim. Anything to say, Gordon?
No, I think that's fair enough. I actually like the wet paint myself. The wet paint I liked. I didn't want my reflection in it. I agree with you there. That would look probably better from an angle. But yeah, I spoke to the guy, obviously, and asked him. He was quite good. I got a few pictures of him later on as well when he got his stuff in the trolley and was walking away. So he was a good subject.
Excellent. Yeah, I think the wet paint adds a touch of humour to it as well. The fact that, he's sort of sitting up against the door and so, yeah, well seen. Good work, Gordon. But it's, just something that we're not always aware of at the time, especially with street photography, where it's very fast moving and you have to be good to go or you miss the shot. But just to be aware, if you don't want yourself to be in an image, just to move around to the side so that you can still get the shot but not be part of it. Anything to say about this one, Gordon?
All right, this is another one. Yeah, it's just the waitress was standing outside. Obviously, I asked her, and she's posed for it. And I don't know. I just quite liked the framing of the restaurant, and I quite like that. She was quite nice.
Yeah, I like it too. I think you've had a good opportunity there and obviously moved in, sought permission where needed, and yeah, you've caught a really nice shot. And the hair contrasts very well with the blue of the sign, so you've got that quite nice colour juxtaposition going on there as well. So really good. Well done, Gordon.
Thanks.
Next up we have Peter. Could I ask David Kay, please, to critique this one?
Yes, well, I like that one. I think that's got a lot of interest in it. Yeah, it's a good framing. I think the central tower is great, except I would have probably liked a little spike on the top to be complete. I assume it goes up a little bit higher, and therefore a little bit more room at the top might have just shown it in its full capacity. But no, I like the photograph. It's good. Your eye is drawn straight to what you want to look at.
Yeah. And what do we have here? A bit of a ladder or something popping into the picture space?
Like it could be easily removed.
Yeah, so great work here, Peter. Really unusual image, one that I haven't seen before. Anything to say?
I think actually on the original, actually you can see the top of the whatever the spike is, but maybe I don't know if I've cropped it too tight. Yeah, that I think the comment about the ladder is kind of relevant. I should have taken that out. It was quite tricky to actually get exactly the right spot and make sure you got as much of that in as possible. It was a very tight space to get the best angle. I'm not quite sure if I got it quite right, but I'll probably go back and have another go at that maybe.
Yeah, it's a great shot and definitely a one to repeat until you've got to the stage where you personally are really happy with it. It's most unusual and it's really well taken. Yes, you could maybe sort out that little spike at the top. Could very well make a really good black and white as well. And really, really good. So well done, Peter. Love that. Great shot. Next up we have Ashley. Nick, are you back yet?
Yes, I am indeed. Yes, it's you get the feeling of being drawn into the central arcade. and you've got the nice contrast of the colours on the left-hand side also leading you in, and the people standing there. I would have, it would be no problem to just crop in a bit more and just sort of come down probably to the top of the arch at the top of the picture, and well, you think you could take it quite a long way up at the bottom and just bring out the detail, and still get the feeling that you were looking in through, through the frame.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you, Nick. Anything to say, Ashley?
Yeah, absolutely. I could have cropped in. I'm sure I liked that. It looked quite dark on the screen there. I remember going in there and just thinking the shutter speeds were also quite low in there. It could well be cropped, but I think it's sort of captured, the circular arch and the arch of the arcade as well. The trouble with the arcade are those yellow warning.
Sadly, yes.
And I had tried to crop them out, but it was just about impossible. Content aware was having a nightmare with them.
Yeah, it'd be really difficult. So options, maybe next time you go, they may not be there, or if you have a glamorous assistant to help, they could maybe just quickly pop them inside a doorway just so you can grab the shot. So I've done that before many times, and it's been perfectly fine, just so that you don't have to do too much work in post-production, which is very tricky. So yeah, a little bit of cropping and straightening for that one, but again, it's like this note-taking we were talking about last week. Anything that really appeals to you, it's sometimes a good idea just to go back and retake, and that's what you really need to do with all of these images if you're not 100% happy. Good work, Ashley. Next up we have David K. James, could you critique, please?
Yes, I like the way it's framed with the leaves. Yes, it's very nice. I'm not sure about the yellow jacket. Sort of drags your eye away to the left, but I believe the George and the Dragon is the main subject of it.
Okay.
But no, I do like the framing of it. Yes.
Yeah, really well framed. Thank you, James. Anything to say, David?
Yes, you're right. I could have cloned out the girl in the yellow jacket, but yes, I just thought, well, it's a simple framing, and I like the pigeon sitting on the head of the lion too.
Yes.
On the plinth.
What you could have also done, just because there's quite a bit of cloning to do with your adjustment brush, you could have just used negative saturation and taken the colour out of the yellow jacket. Just so it's not like pulling your eye across backwards and forwards all the time. So that would just be a suggestion, but really well seen and very good framing. Well done, David.
Or a few extra leaves put in to complete it.
Next up we have Nick. Could I ask Emma to critique, please?
Yep. This is good. You've got the frame of the bike racks. They are with the people inside. And then you've also got the other people outside. It kind of captures like the buzz, I suppose, of Old Eldon Square. I think I remember seeing these people. But no, it's good. And I like the kind of colour scheme that's going on. Yeah.
There's a lot going on there. Thank you, Emma. Anything to say, Nick?
Nothing really. So it really was just a grab shot. I was looking for taking a picture of something completely different from that spot, and I just saw it. So it's blown up quite a lot. It's only a fairly small part of the image, but I was quite pleased with the interaction between the people, and obviously the idea was that the framing was the bike racks.
Yeah, love that framing. So that's an area to keep an eye on should that opportunity present itself again. So yeah, great shot, Nick. Well done.
Thank you.
Margie is not here. Could I ask Lisa just to say a few words about Margie's image, please?
Yeah, no, that's really nicely framed. With the colours are great because it's really colourful. It can be quite dark and drab in that building, but she's really brought out the colours. I like the fact the ladies are sort of centrally out where the light is, so positioning is really good. All the verticals look pretty good, so no, it's a really good image for Margie.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Lisa. Lisa, yours is next. David Robinson, would you care to critique, please?
Yeah, I like the idea of turning this to a black and white, and it brings the guy who appears to be smoking. The smoke, the white of the smoke works well against the darker background created inside the central arcade there, so that works really well. I don't think there's a lot I would probably improve on that one, to be honest. I think the guy's perfectly positioned as well, and everything seems to be quite central. I guess I do think it works well as a black and white.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely love this, Lisa. I think you really captured the decisive moment. So David's hit the nail on the head there. All the elements come together really well. He's got space to walk into. We've got a sense of place, and so it's absolutely spot on. So very difficult to take again, though, because of course we haven't got a model release.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, obviously it was a fleeting moment, so I'd never get a model release. So I presume that sort of photo is not really acceptable for an exhibition, really.
Well, yeah, we've got to be very careful. So, you know, of the first photo shoot, a lot of that was kind of practice, note taking, and then hopefully for the next one, we can have that legal side ironed out and, you know, just made perfectly clear. But I really love the image, and, you know, I'm sure you'll be able to use it. You could use it, you know, you could go into RPS folder if it's teamed with another black and white, Lisa, so it can certainly be used. It's a great shot.
Right, thank you.
Well done. What can you tell us about this one?
So it's more of a comedy one. I had to put it in just because it's so very Newcastle. It's something I'd never seen until I moved up here. And these, when you have the children, is that all these ladies love all these really frilly dresses that you can only seem to get in Granger Market in this one shop. And it just made me chuckle with that. Yeah. You could hardly see the lady, which is why she's colour popped.
Yeah, it's really well seen, this. So you did very well to spot the opportunity and also to think about colour popping it. So a great image, and really like that one, Lisa. Well done. I mean, that one, you know, if you wanted to use it, I dare say that lady will still be there. So you could go back and just ask her, you know, show her the image and just say, would she be happy to be featured in an exhibition, and get us to sign the form. So, you know,
she's definitely probably there every day. So I think, that would definitely be an option if it's good enough for that sort of thing.
It depends really on, you know, the way you're going to go with your three images. You know, if you're going to go for something along candid lines, or if you're, you know, going to go for something very different. So it might not fit, but it could well be used for other purposes in the future.
Right, yeah, cheers. Thanks.
Next up we have Graham. Could I ask, Vince, are you able to speak now still?
I think so.
Yeah, fabulous, that's great.
Yes, I like the way that this is done as a square, and that it contains another square, and it contains quite almost squares and rectangles to make the overall image. I think that the lighting inside is well controlled as opposed to the lighting outside. I think I might have been tempted to try and just raise the lighting a little bit on the outside, because it seems to have a bit of a cast to it, sort of taking it slightly in the blue area, I think. But other than that, I think it's well seen and it's well executed.
Thank you for that, Vince. That's really helpful. Anything to say, Graham?
Yeah, it's interesting that Vince commented on about what you call the cast. That's actually a lookup table that I put over the top of it just to try to bring the whole thing together, because there's actually a lot of things have changed inside that image from the get-go. There's like, for example, the sign above her head, wasn't there? But so the color lookup table that I used is obviously perceived by other people to be a cast. Yeah, so I just tried to make it bring all the color, everything together, basically.
So how would you present that, Graham? Would you like to have the frame within a mount, or would you just get rid of the frame?
I actually wouldn't use. I wouldn't use this in the exhibition image at all. So I don't think it represents Newcastle. So
No.
if I put a frame around it just to show a different way of presenting an image, Jane. But it would eventually go into a mount, but with wider borders on it and stuff like that. But I wouldn't. I've just taken this image to fulfil the remit of a frame. It's not one that I'll actually be using in the exhibition.
Okay,
So,
very well
I don't know if that answers the
presented.
question.
Really well presented, so very well seen as well. I know you showed me this one earlier, and I loved the framing way you've captured that lady in exactly the right spot, so all of those elements come together so well. So excellent work, Graham. Love that.
Vince, on the lighting, there's a load of burning gone on there, and I've got rid of one of the fluorescent lights that was there as well. So the light was really harsh and loads of flares off it and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of work had to go into that. That's what I'm saying. But anyhow, that's what it is.
Yeah, it has been worthwhile though, because you've ended up with a great image. So well done.
Thank you.
Next up we have James. Could I ask Gordon to critique again, please?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so another we took a lot around the Central Arcade. That's a nice one. It's I like the lighting on that. The sort of gold and the sort of light sand colours in the stone. Got it centred nicely. I might have been tempted to cut some of the foreground out. I don't know how that would work. But overall, yes, I like that picture.
Thank you. Anything to say, James?
Yes, I agree with the foreground. Just when I was looking at there, I was thinking I could have cropped that in a lot more. But I just didn't realise it at the time. But yeah, Gordon's right. I could have cropped that a bit more at the front.
Okay. Well done. Okay, so we'll move on and take a look at candid shots. First up, we have one by Vince. Could I ask Peter to critique, please?
I like that. That's a really good shot. I think there's a huge amount of interest in it, isn't there? You know exactly where you are. And the kind of the shot of both the barber from the front and the back, and seeing his face in the mirror is really good. I do like that. It's a really good shot.
Excellent framing. Really love this, Vince. Anything to say about it?
Not a lot. I mean, I guess I was still thinking about playing with frames within frames at the same time. The only thing that I got slightly confused about was which way around to show it, because it's actually reversed. Because otherwise the writing in the back would have been the wrong way around, and I thought that was too distracting. So I flipped it in order to get rid of what I perceived as a distraction.
Okay. But it's a really strong image, and it's just, fulfills the brief very well indeed. So excellent work. Love that. This one is by Phil. Ashley, could you critique, please?
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, it's all about timing, isn't it? It's a good candid shot, just as the woman's turning around at the pigeons, wondering what's going on behind her. And one just coming in from the left, coming into land, so plenty of room in front of it for a movement shot. And the pigeons all gathered on the grass there, so a very decent candid shot.
Thoughts on improvement, Ashley?
I'm not quite sure. Maybe bring it in from the top a little with the green sign at the top. It's like all those street scenes. You can't help with the odd distractions. Because there's normally a lot of clutter about. But I'm not quite sure how I'd improve it at all.
Okay. The one thing I would have suggested would have been a faster shutter speed. Just so that we have the birds, in sharp focus and we haven't got as much blur. Where you have something up against the edge of the frame, it kind of brings a feeling of tension. And so, again, the bird's neither in nor out. I think, if he could have just sort of got that bird one way or the other, again, that would have been an improvement. So thank you for that, Ashley. I'll pass that on to Phil. Next up we have James. Ali, could you critique, please?
Yeah, I think we all put out this shot. It's just a shot. It's built into sketching. The red contrast against the nice frame. The kind of shot. I don't know how you do that.
Okay. Thank you, Ali. Anything to say, James?
No, this guy was very accommodating. I'm sure loads of people got pictures of him, but he was really quite happy just to sit there and carry on with his art while they were taking photos of him.
Yeah. Okay. So
I've actually sent him a bunch of images. He asked me to send him of him doing his work. Yeah, and he was very grateful to receive them.
Yeah, you struck up a dialogue with him, didn't you? He was very talented in what he was doing.
Yeah, the stuff that's inside that portfolio case is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so well seen. Good work, James. Next we have Heather. Could I ask Jim to critique, please?
Yes, I like that image, especially with the clouds, and so it looks, like a dull day, but his high-vis jacket sticks out, so he goes straight into the operator of the street cleaner. That's a very nice image, that.
Okay, thank you for that, Jim. I'll pass that on to Heather. Next up we have Gordon's image. Could I ask David Kay to critique, please?
Yes, I think every picture tells a story, and that one certainly does. Yeah, I don't know whether he was just out of it completely or just having a quiet doze to himself. But I like that. I think the colour of the scooters really sort of makes it.
Yes.
I think probably a bit of straightening of the poles would have helped, or the pole on the right. I either cut it out, crop it out, or straighten it up, one of the two perhaps, but I like the image, and it's minimalist.
It's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? You've really caught the decisive moment. A lot of people took pictures of the scooters, and some people colour popped them, and some people used them as framing, but this image with the guy, it just speaks volumes. Anything to say, Gordon?
I just like the way he was surrounded by the scooters, but there's nothing to do with the scooters. He's not interested in the scooters. He's just sitting there having a break.
Okay, so really well seen. Excellent work. Next up we have Peter. Could I ask Nick to critique, please?
Yes, indeed. It certainly caught a nice reflective moment. I think that the whole way that the shot is composed is very good. The welcome sign over to the right is nice. There's a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of a bright light in the upper left-hand corner that I would have probably tried to tone down a little bit. Maybe just a sort of touch of a vignette round it would have had the same effect. But no, I think it captures a candid moment very well.
Thank you, Nick. Anything to say, Peter?
Yeah, I'd asked him if I could take his photograph. He wanted to put his phone away, and I said, I don't want you to put your phone away. I want you to do exactly what you're doing. And I just thought the kind of the contrast between that and the welcome sign was quite interesting. I would have liked. I think you're absolutely right, Nick. I think that there was something about that, the background, that it's not good enough really. And on the other side, there was sort of like a shelf where you had sort of these brushes and things, and which I didn't have enough of to really actually include them. So if I took that again, I would have do that in a slightly different position. But I was just delighted somebody would let me take the photo, to be honest. So
yeah, and you asked permission, which was really good, because that's maybe something that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, it was out of my comfort zone. So to be quite honest, I got a bit over excitement with the other ones, and half of them were blurred, I think. So this one was as good as it got, really.
Yeah, but a very nice guy and very happy to get his picture taken. So, you know, if you wanted to pursue this line of photography, I dare say you could go back and have the same dialogue with him, have a conversation and ask him if he'd be prepared to move somewhere where you'd feel happier with the background.
Yeah, I might do that.
Yeah, so a really interesting character though. Fantastic. This one is by Ashley. Could I ask James, please, would you care to critique?
Yes, I think it's a really nice photograph. I like the red jacket that's been photopopped. It brings the whole picture alive, even though it's black and white. I think it's really good, yeah.
And it's an excellent image, this one, Ashley. It has all the elements that you'd expect to find. I've actually sent this off to the Gosforth Civic, along with a few others, as representative of the sort of work that we were taking last Friday. Is there anything to say about it?
Yeah, it was. I took it scanning around various people around the square in Eldon Square. It's cropped in quite a bit to avoid people walking in just from the left-hand side, and I desaturated for several reasons. One was because of the red jacket. Red in the photograph always sort of works well. Also, there's a bus in the background, just the top left-hand corner, in bright blues and all sorts, so just to take that away, take it, make sure the eye didn't catch that, and them just together, they were chatting quite a bit to each other, and then I was just scanning with the camera, and then just so no permissions on that one.
No. But it's so very natural. They haven't clocked you or don't appear to have seen you. But it's just so perfectly natural. I think that comes across, and it's just so representative of city life. I think it's an excellent image. That very well done.
Thank you.
Next up we have Ali. Emma, would you care to critique, please?
Yep. I can't tell where it is, but just like two people on a bike, I imagine, or something. The rubbish behind, I'm not sure about. It kind of adds to it. because you kind of think initially you don't like it, but actually it kind of adds to the picture. And the yellow bag really, it's quite eye-grabbing as well because of the colour.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Ali, anything to say?
Yeah, it was actually the rubbish on the trackers. I thought this would actually look really nice in black and white. When I checked it, it was just a bit washed out. But it was totally candid. I had no idea I was taking photographs. So it didn't great just skill up. But the yellow bag, I thought maybe I'll take an eye on me a little bit because the girl's school was the main subject.
Yeah. So one thing, you know, when you're taking this type of shot, I know it's quite difficult because of the speed. Try to avoid amputations where you're sort of cropping off legs at like unusual viewpoints. You know, try and sort of do like head and shoulders or 3/4, but try not to just sort of crop off where, you know, you should expect to see the rest of the legs and the feet, because that again is a negative. But I suppose if you're wanting to get the rubbish in, maybe taking in portrait wouldn't have been quite so easy, although you have got a space on the left and a bit on the right. It's just something to be aware of, you know, to try to avoid amputations. But an interesting, interesting couple to take a picture of. Next up we have David. Lisa, could you critique, please?
Yeah, I like this one. You're sort of drawn to her initially, and then you've got the artist in the background. But it works quite well actually, sort of on the sort of draws your eye back in the photo. So I mean, it's lots going on, but I think it works as a composition, even though because of the perspective seems to work quite well. So the colours. So no, I think that's good.
And the direct engagement with the eyes of the cashier, that's quite disconcerting, isn't it? It seems she really does sort of hold your gaze in that situation. Anything to say, David? Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, I just saw her working in the shop, so I went in the shop to ask her if I could take her photograph, and because I loved the colour of her hair, I loved the fact that she was so colourfully dressed. It really appealed to me, and I thought, right, if I can take her, and her eyes are just gorgeous. Probably shouldn't say that, but they are gorgeous. Having him in the background, I did have to clone all of the floor in, or sort of, because it was all washed out. So that's taken from another photograph and put into that photograph to make it look as if it's the prop floor of the building.
Well done. So yeah,
no, I liked her colour. She just really stood out for me in the shop.
Yeah, really well taken, David. Nice and sharp. So yeah, a great hit, that one, and lovely contrast of colour. That is amazing. Very well done.
Thank you.
Next we have Nick. Let me just see. David, could you critique, please? David Robinson.
Right. Well, again, the central character is virtually in the centre of the photograph, and he's nice and sharp. I suppose when you're trying to take a photograph quickly, you could say that the shutter speed could have been a little bit higher in order just to try and sharpen up one or two of the birds or the pigeons that are in flight. That'd be probably nitpicking a little bit because you've got to take the shot immediately. But I do like it because it just focuses your attention, and it is very much Newcastle because these pigeons are part of the old Eldon Square life, really. So it does depict what the project's all about. It sort of scores 10 out of 10 on that. And I say the guy looks nice and sharp. Possibly could even work as a black and white as well. But generally speaking, I mean, you probably, I suppose if you went into Photoshop, there's some images of the wings on the left-hand side. You could probably take them out in order to, because that's probably a little bit untidy. Although probably, and maybe a better way, is you could actually put a nice vignette round the corners and probably turn it into more of a circular photograph. That might work as well. But I do like it. It's a good photograph.
It is a good photograph. Thank you for that, David. A good critique. Anything you'd like to say about it, Nick?
Just that there was an awful lot of pigeons flying around. It all happened very quickly. And I took a few, but that was the only one where I managed to get a clear shot of the bloke himself. I did try, as I was taking them, to rack up the shutter speed a bit, and I thought largely I'd managed to get the heads of the birds sharp, and I thought a bit of movement on the wings just sort of gave a feeling that they were flapping their wings around. So there you are.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really evocative, a very striking image. It speaks volumes, and yes, I'm sure David's right. It would make a very good black and white. If you do go for the vignette, just try and make it subtle, because the whole purpose of a vignette is it shouldn't be obviously a vignette, just a very subtle darkening. If you wanted to take that route, might be worth a try just to see what it looks like. But a great image, well seen. If you wanted to improve on it, I'm sure going back to the same location you might be able to get similar again. But I think that's another one I sent to the Gosford Civic, just because I thought it was particularly good. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
This one is by Margie. Let me see. Could I ask Graham to just say a few words about this one, please?
Yeah, as a candid image, it's representing something that happened in Newcastle on a particular day. Colours of the hairs go with the background. I'm not sure how candid it is.
Yeah, it's quite busy, isn't it? You're not really quite sure what the photographer is trying to portray in this image. Yeah.
I think that's a good way of saying is I don't know what the story is.
Yeah.
But they, so it's just like it's captured something that's happened in Newcastle, and yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Graham.
I know this place.
Next up, we have Lisa. Back to Vince. Would you care to say a few words about this one, Vince? Are you muted, Vince?
There we are.
Oh, that's it. Thank you.
I'm not a fan of images that pop at all, but I don't think that this one it doesn't strike you in that way because of the fact that the colours that are on the wall, including the whites and so on, are quite natural. The only thing it tells us it's pop really is the wall on the left and the floor. So that's one thing. I think it's always tricky when you start photographing other people's art, because the question is what is it you're trying to do in presenting somebody else's art within the frame, and I'm not quite sure what the answer is here. The figure that's standing there is engaging in itself, but I'm not sure that juxtaposed against the art in the background, I'm not clear what the intention is here in what's being communicated.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Vince. Anything you'd like to say about the image, Lisa?
I just like the way she had her back against the sort of sunny sunshine theme of a beach. She just looked pretty fed up and in her own little world, really. So it was more like the opposition of the cheerful background, but actually my life's not that cheerful. The fact she had her back in it, because I wouldn't normally have someone with facing out of the picture either. But it was, I mean, maybe it hasn't worked. So, but it was, I just quite liked it.
Okay. Do you think if you'd perhaps just lightened up the face ever so slightly so we could just get a sense of the person under the hood, so we could maybe engage more with her, that would have helped things?
Yeah, I did lighten her face a little bit. Again, I didn't get permission, so
yeah.
It was just across the street from it was just the bus stop. Really, she was waiting for a bus. So I did try lighting up a little bit, but yeah, it does look very dark on the screen there. So
an interesting character, though.
Yeah, it was just somebody just looked pretty fed up, and it was just the comedy of being stood by these colourful beach huts, and she just looked pretty like she'd had enough.
Thank you, Lisa. Next up we have Graham. Gordon, could you say a couple of words about this one, please?
Yeah, okay. There's the 3 girls with the masks, and the Safely does it, so it's a nice combination of the sign and the people. That's good. And yeah, the colour is nice. It's a nice sort of composition, I think, having the sign and the 3 masks. It's a sign of the times, very topical. We'll look back on this, in a few years. Gosh, that's what it was like back then.
Yeah, very true. So yes, it is almost a form of reportage, isn't it? Anything to say, Graham? Thank you, Gordon.
No, I went out with that mission that we discussed, Jane. Where when I do street photography, I always try to get a message within the sign. So I'm a little bit disappointed that there's actually a guy in full safety gear as we're looking at this image to the right of the blade in pink. I just couldn't bring him forward enough to actually join them, because it would have been good to have him over the top of where the rucksack is in the full safety gear, but he was just too difficult to move in the actual image. But that when I do street photography, it is always with some sort of context of line or colours that match, or actions that speak with one another. So that was why I did that.
Like that a lot. Well done, Graham. Right, okay, so we've sort of spent quite a bit of time heavily on critique. I was just going to suggest that for the next stage we'll maybe just have like a 5-minute break, just for everybody to get a cup of tea or coffee, and then return, and then we'll go into breakouts and just think about ideas for the next photo shoot. So our next meeting will be on Friday the 11th of June, and we are timetabled to go out on a photo shoot. So a few ideas, which are just ideas. I'm not saying we have to do any of these things. You might have something entirely different. The West Road, with the theme of Eyes of the City. So could be a different theme, Eyes of the City, just looking up, looking at the windows, and just really the outlook onto the West Road. Quayside, a creative look. So that could be at sunset, given the time for sunrise. Photo walk at Biker. A photo walk at the Oosburn, or this might have been mentioned by Nick, the party side of things, either the city centre or Jesmond on a Friday night. So just a few ideas to get the ball rolling. Okay, so if I just suggest that if we grab a cuppa and then come back in 5 minutes and then do the next thing. Is everybody okay with that?
Fine, Jane, thank you.
Okay.